Hey, what's going on, guys? It's Chris with the Morning Mayhem. Today is Friday, February 11th. We've got more mayhem, madness, and chaos to get to, so let's jump on into it. All right, so we got the Oscars coming up. Looks like they are going to be, next month? And so for those of you that care about it or will be watching it, yes, it will be televised, allegedly. But we'll get in that. Let's take a look at the 2022 Oscar nominations. And who did you think was going to get in there? Not Marvel. All right, let's go ahead. So from People, 2022 Oscar nominations: Will Smith, Kristen Stewart scored nods. The Power of the Dog leads with 12. 94th Annual Academy Awards will be held at Hollywood's Dolby Theater on Sunday, March 27th. On Tuesday morning, the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Science announced nomination for the 94th Annual Academy Awards. The ceremony is set to air at Hollywood's Dolby. Let's see. The Power of the Dog earned 12 nominations, including for real life couple Kirsten Dunst and Jesse Plemons. I don't think I've ever heard that name before. Kirsten Dunst. Yes, I have. Who played husband and wife in the drama. Dune, the sci-fi epic starring Timothée Chalamet, earned 10 nods, while Belfast and West Side Story got 7. And right there, I think West Side Story was one of those ones we knew wasn't going to do super well at the box office, but was probably going to be getting some Oscar nominations or Academy, whatever you call them. What was the one with Ricky Gervais? Said they did. I don't know. They got the BAFTAs and the Academy Awards, which is the Oscars. Well, I forget what the other Golden Globes, you know. So I'm sure there's all kinds of stuff that films like West Side Story that do not very remarkable at the box office. They'll get some award nominations and whatnot because they play a lot of times for those more than they do for the audience. But it's another story for another day. Will Packer is producing the broadcast this year, with Glenn Weiss directing the ceremony. The Emmy nominee behind the movies like Girls Trip Straight Outta Compton and Stomp the Yard said in press release, "The power, the beauty, the romance of the imagery in movies has always attracted me. I'm fully embracing the challenge of bringing an ode to one of the most iconic mediums in the world to life. What an honor." Now, look, so I've said this several times before. I am a filmmaker myself. It'd be awesome to win an Academy Award, but at the same time, I'd rather my film do well at the box office than win an award. I'd like to make sure that I'm making films, that the audience wants to see, that people will pay money to go see, not because I want to make the money, but that's as an artist. I like this show. I hope the show ends up garnering significantly more followers and subscribers and whatever, viewers, than we have right now, not because of, for my glory, even though I'll certainly bask in it, and that'd be great. But because there is an art to it, there's, a message, there is a service being provided. So just like with films, that's art, and you want to get it out there in the world, and, you want to share it with as many people as you can. Same thing here for the podcast. I'm hoping more people get to see it because they get to hear from a different perspective, from different resources that we use on this show to point out different things in the news that's going on. So yeah, I should probably be more excited about the Academy Awards, but the thing is everything right now in Hollywood has continued to get so much more political and, backdoor deals happening, and it's really made me not want to be part of that Hollywood scene, which is okay because I live in Georgia and it is quickly becoming one of the hotbeds for filmmaking. I think we are number one in the US for film productions, or were not too long ago anyway, beating out New York and LA. So I know Georgia's getting up there. I'm not in Atlanta, but I did shoot there this past weekend. That was pretty cool in a studio. But I digress. We'll move on about the Oscars, because I'm sure everyone's more interested about the Oscars than me in my film career. But moving on. So ABC previously confirmed there will be a host for this year's ceremony, though it hasn't been announced who will MC. The show has gone hostless since Jimmy Kimmel headlined back in 2018. Well, how are you going to top Jimmy Kimmel? He's the perfect left wing system child that can go out there and, make sure he pushes the narrative. And yeah, you're gonna have to find somebody else equally as awful. And look, again, I'm not against the left because I agree with the left on a lot of ideology things. I mostly lean to the right. Fair enough. I try to be more centrist and see things from every perspective, but there's definitely some things on the left that I can get behind. But right now, they seem to kind of be running wild. So sorry if that offends you, but he's their boy, and I just not a fan anymore. I don't know what happened to him. He became part of the machine because he used to be pretty funny. He used to do some great stuff. Now it's just trying to carry out the mission of whatever that is. But yeah, remember to tune in on Sunday, March 27th on what do they say, ABC. They promised to have a host this time. Maybe. We'll see. All right, let's keep going. Moving on. So one of the most talked about films that's coming out this year is The Batman. I've already said my piece about it, and I'll say it again. There are some films I'm looking forward to that are coming out this year. The Batman's not one of them. It's not just because of Robert Pattinson, but it is because of Robert Pattinson. And we're going to get into some of that here in just a minute as to why there's some things that off about Robert Pattinson playing Batman. There was the big ordeal that the director, I forget his name, Matt, we'll read it in a minute, I can't remember, apparently wanted him to bulk up and get big for the part, and when he came back he wasn't, and said he didn't want to because he didn't want to kind of create that kind of look or that kind of character again. He wanted to do something different, and apparently the director wasn't very happy about that. So there's some issues there from what I've heard. If the rumor mill is true, the trailer or pretty much any of the trailers, the good part in it and the one everyone talks about is where he's just pounding some dude in the pavement there. But other than that, I didn't think anything was that special about it. I didn't think the car was that special. I didn't think the makeup was that special. I didn't think that the costume was that special. I didn't think that the overdubbing of the Riddler, what he had to say, was that special. So maybe I'm just being pessimistic, but I don't know. I think it's going to do well in the box office. We did talk about that before. I think this is one that's going to do well at the box office. I just don't think it's going to be that good. But I hope I'm wrong because I love Batman. I love Batman. I know you can't. I don't know. You might can see it. Hold on. You can't see it too good. Right here is an autographed little picture, card, whatever, from Adam West from when he was playing Batman. Well, not from when he was playing. He had already got finished playing it, but I was a little kid and I got that from Adam West. So that was pretty cool. I mean, Batman's my favorite superhero. Up there with Wolverine and Gambit and some of those other guys. But what was that? But yeah, Batman's my dude. So I'm really hoping that Robert Pattinson can pull it off. Again, I'm not too sure that's going to be the case, but yeah, wishful thinking here. Let's check this out. From Insider, Robert Pattinson says he felt like an idiot because he didn't realize that Batman is the world's greatest detective. And and I hate to judge a book by its cover. My buddy and I were working on a project, and I've seen some of the footage. And of course, I probably jumped on a little too early to give him some judgment calls, some criticisms about things to do before he put his final touches on there. Just trying to do my part and help out, but at the same time, I know he's going to do awesome. I know he's going to do amazing. Problem is, I don't know if these guys are. So maybe I'm being too judgmental too early on, saying he looks just like emo Bruce Wayne, and I'm just not digging the look of anything in this film so far, really. But again, maybe I'm jumping the gun. I don't know. Robert Pattinson spoke to GQ about how the Batman focuses on the titular character as a detective, which that part's pretty cool. Pattinson said he feels like an idiot for not knowing Batman is called the world's greatest detective. The Batman hits theaters on Friday, March 4th. Oh, okay. So that's really soon. So, and I may go see that. I may go see that again. I'm a huge Batman fan, but we'll see. Matt Reeves, that's his name, Matt Reeves, says Robert Pattinson said that he wasn't familiar with Bruce Wayne / the Batman's detective side before signing on to play the Cape Crusader in Matt Reeves' The Batman. I watched a rough cut of the movie by myself, and the first shot is so jarring from any other Batman movie that it's just kind of a totally different pace, Pattinson said in a March 2022 cover story for GQ released on Tuesday. So March 2022 cover story released on Tuesday at the beginning of February. I don't know if I'm reading that wrong or if that's just the way it's done. He continued, it is what Matt was saying from the first meeting I had with him. I want to do a 70s noir detective story like The Conversation, and I kind of assumed that meant the mood, bored of something, the look of it, but from the first shot, it's, this actually is a detective story. Patton says he feels like an idiot, yada, yada, yada. Yeah, so I'm kind of cool about the whole detective thing. I'm interested to see how they go in that, because even though that's always been there, I'd like to see them focus more on that. And I think that could be really, really cool. So I'm sure the story is probably good. And maybe I'm just giving Pattinson a hard time, even though I had seen him in some good roles. So I'm not trying to dump on him completely. But at the same time, and we'll get to another article here in a second, but it does say that first shot or that first opening scene was jarring. And we've heard stuff like that from like Kevin Smith about films and how he, cried when he saw the ending or the opening or whatever. So a lot of this is probably just talking points too, but maybe he's right. Let's see here at MovieWeb. It says the Batman early reaction calls the DC outing complex and controversial. An alleged first reaction to the Batman calls director Matt Reeves' take on DC superhero iconic complex and controversial. An alleged first reaction has called the directors yada yada yada. This exciting and intriguing description comes courtesy of editor-in-chief of AwardsAce.com and continues with comparisons between the Batman and several cinematic classics from Chinatown to The Silence of the Lambs. Now that's awesome. Here's a tweet said, received a text from a source who's seen the Batman, calling it a complex film, comparing it to Zodiac, which was awesome. Chinatown, I don't know if I've seen that one. Usual Suspects, which was great. Silence of the Lambs, which was awesome. Source also stating it will be controversial and people will discuss it endlessly. So, unfortunately, in 2022, controversial could mean all kinds of things. With agendas and politics and everything coming into play in a lot of films and this forced, inclusions and diversities and, making sure we hit all of our agenda points and everything, controversial could be something along those lines, or it can finally be a real good escape from all that, get that escapism that we're looking for. As one of the people that commented on one of my videos recently was talking about, that escapism is a huge thing. Absolutely. And maybe that's what it is. Maybe it doesn't hit those little, check boxes of diversity and inclusion and this and this and this to the point that, maybe people think it should now that they've been conditioned to think that way. So maybe it's controversial in the sense that it's actually a pretty good movie at just, being an entertaining movie. Side note, and I would love to see you guys comment down below. Got a question for you here. So this movie is being compared to several other films. One of them is The Usual Suspects. Usual Suspects stars Kevin Spacey. I believe that Kevin Spacey is one of the best actors I've ever seen. I loved watching Kevin Spacey and everything, but he's a pedo perv and now he's not getting any work. How do you feel about things like that? Those controversies that pretty much blacklist certain actors or actresses for things that happen. Do you still feel comfortable watching those films? Do you feel uncomfortable watching those films? Do you want to see them continue to make films, or do you agree that they should be, axed and no longer allowed to be part of that community and make films anymore? And if they did, would they be supported? I would be very interested to see what you have to think. So if you will, in the comments below, put your thoughts in there, and let me know what you think about Kevin Spacey or any of these other, I don't know, mine's blank right now, but actors that have kind of been, blacklisted for stuff like that. Also, too, as a reminder, any of these links that I'm going to, the sites I'm going to, all the links will be below in the show notes, so you can check that out as well, and go behind me to see what's going on there. But I'll let you guys continue reading that one on your own. Let's see what else we got here in entertainment world over at AV Club. It says Lucasfilm has reportedly realized it should only be making Star Wars stuff now. It'd be great if they could focus on making good Star Wars stuff, but that's just my opinion. Let's go on down here. I keep repeating myself when I lead the little taglines, don't I? In 2019, Disney picked up the rights to Tommy Adams' Yaw book, Children of Blood and Bone. Sorry if I don't know how to pronounce things. I just move over that. So, no disrespect, but that's, I think less disrespectful than just butchering it outright. I'm not even trying. Children of Blood and Bone, a fantasy story that had apparently made an impression on Lucasfilm boss Kathleen Kennedy and was set to become that studio's first completely new thing, unrelated to Star Wars or Indiana Jones or any other George Lucas legacy properties, since getting acquired by Disney. That's a big deal, since whatever happened with Children of Blood and Bone would then speak to whatever Kennedy and Disney had in mind for Lucasfilm after the new Star Wars trilogy had ended. Maybe they should have just moved on and left Star Wars alone. I feel like Kathleen Kennedy and Disney have really put a stain on the Star Wars franchise. Maybe you feel different. Again, you can leave a comment below and let me know. I read every comment. There's not that many of them to read, so I'll read them. But yeah, they really put a stain on Star, and they're probably about to on Indiana Jones too, because I don't think Crystal Skull wasn't Disney. I don't believe that one was rough, really rough. And they're working on the new one. I think Harrison Ford got injured on the set because he's a little up there to be playing it. Now he's probably in better shape than I am, but still to be doing the Indiana Jones kind of stuff. I don't know. But, man, I don't know. Just not a Kathleen Kennedy or Disney fan, especially with the Star Wars. You can see where they've started messing up with Marvel. I think you can see that. And it's definitely obvious in Star Wars. So maybe they should have gotten away from it, but maybe now if they're going to focus on it, they can actually focus on it instead of trying to crank one out every year or, a new show every 6 months or something like that to get those viewers or get those dollars or box office or whatever. Maybe they can take their time and make some good films. I know they're capable of doing it. I just think they're cranking them out, one after the other just to get that dollar bill, y'all, I guess. Let's see. Now, that's exactly what's happening, but not in the way anyone expected. According to the Hollywood Reporter, Disney and Lucasfilm allowed the rights to Children of Blood and Bone to lapse after deciding to just focus on Star Wars, making it pretty clear that Disney's plan for Lucasfilm involved making the same old stuff, and that's about it. I don't like the way that's worded, the same old stuff, even though that is kind of what they're doing, is they're making the same old stuff, just, slapping a new shill of paint on there or whatever. It would be great to see some new stuff from the old stuff, inspired by the old stuff. And the story goes on, but, hey, ICP, I hadn't seen those guys in a while, but yeah, it's, got it. Thanks. But yeah, I'd be interested to know what you guys think. Should they be just focused on Star Wars stuff now, or what? What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments. Last couple things here we're going to get to. Jimmy Carr. I think Jimmy Carr is an excellent comedian. I don't always get his jokes. It's not my sense of humor all the time, but I think he's hilarious. But he made a joke. They said it's a Holocaust joke, but it is and it isn't. I'm gonna pull it up real quick and let you guys see it and see for yourselves. All right, let's take a look at this.
Right, this should be a career ender. Okay, strap in, everyone. You ready?
He knows going into it, it's going to be a fun one. That's always great.
When people talk about the Holocaust, when people talk about the Holocaust, they talk about the tragedy and horror of 6 million Jewish lives being lost to the Nazi war machine.
I'm just going to pause it. I've had a couple of videos already trying to get copyright strike, or copyright claimed rather, not strike. So I'm going to try to avoid that a little bit if I can here.
But they never mention the thousands of gypsies that were killed by the Nazis. No one ever wants to talk about that because no one ever wants to talk about the positives.
All right, there's more to this bit. This is just a 2-minute bit, and this is from Jewish News's YouTube channel because it's, you know, dealing with the Holocaust, I guess. But I'll have a link for that in the show notes below. I would go check it out. In fact, I would watch the special. This was pretty funny to me, but I wanted to pull it up this way on YouTube and not just the video, you know, in my little screen here. I wanted to look at the comments with you guys. So as we go on down, comedy is an art form just like any other, and it makes people think and it challenges people's assumptions. This is a comedian basically just doing his job. There's no such thing, Michael Scott. There's no such thing as an appropriate joke. That's why it's a joke. Let's see. Find a short ones. Nothing wrong with this joke. Hilarious, crying throughout the whole show. Calm down. It wasn't even the worst joke of the set. People that don't like this comedy don't watch it. They say safety in numbers. Try telling that to 6 million Jews. Carr. Ooh. Not the first time, won't be the last either. You can't cancel Jimmy. There was one in here I thought I saw. Somebody said they were a Jew or they were something. He's a comedian with a long history of telling jokes. If he had been a politician, if it had been said as a political statement, then that's another story. Very true. But I can't find that other one I was looking for. But it goes on, and yeah, I mean, it is what it is. If you don't like it, you know, that's cool. You know, leave your comments below. In fact, you know, I liked it. Hey, good job, guys. Thumbs up. And I don't have that Chrome browser extension. I can't really check out and see what's up. But let's go back over here to this article real quick. Comedian Jimmy Carr faces backlash over Holocaust joke in Netflix special. Comedian Jimmy Carr has landed himself in hot water for making light of the Holocaust in his new Netflix stand-up special, His Dark Material. In a widely shared clip, Carr makes a joke about the Gypsy, Roma, and people slaughtered by Nazi Germany. When people talk about the Holocaust, that's his joke. We just talked about that. Here's a tweet of somebody being butthurt. I don't know what I should be more gutted or disgusted by here. The kind of racism that us GRT people are forced to live with every day, that it's absolutely okay to demonize us and our demise as a joke, or the reactions of whooping and cheering from the audience. Maybe you should just learn how to take a joke. I mean, I get that people don't, you know, like jokes made about them if it's in jest or whatever, but you know, one of the comments, and I didn't, again, that's one of the other ones I didn't see in there. It was that through his comedy here, he's also educating us where a lot of people may not have known that gypsies or Roma or whatever were also slaughtered in the Holocaust. And he brings light to that in his own little way, I guess. But I like Jimmy Carr. Jimmy Carr's funny. I know it goes on. I didn't until just recently hear, and I heard this from somebody I know. They said that, excuse me, they said that that gypsy is a derogatory term. It's a slur, and I've never heard that. In fact, my wife used to watch some show, some gypsy show. I can't remember what it was called. Gypsy Sisters, maybe, is that it? I don't know. I think it was Gypsy Sisters, maybe. But she used to watch that, and the fact that they said gypsy all the time, or they did say Roma and some of the other terms or whatnot. But the fact that the show was called Gypsy Sisters, I definitely wouldn't have thought that gypsy was a slur, but apparently it is. But good on Jimmy for going out there and taking a chance and making a joke. I get that people are going to be offended by it, and they're going to try to cancel him for it more than likely. But you know what? Funny be funny. And not everybody gets the joke. Not everybody will get all the jokes. I think we need to start laughing together again, because when we can laugh at ourselves and laugh at each other without judgment or worry of cancellation or anything like that, we don't have time to fight each other. We don't have time to nitpick at each other. So let's try it. Let's start laughing together. Just a suggestion. Moving on. All right. So January 6th is still not a thing. I know to some people it is, and some people, like me, see it for, I think, what it really is. You got a lot of bad actors in there doing some, climbing walls and pushing back barriers, but still not the insanity that we saw in the Summer of Love. But then at the same time, you got a lot of peaceful protesters. I'd say probably even more peaceful than the Summer of Love or several other protests that have been going on. But we looked at videos before where they're still walking in line with the stanchions. They're not all over the place until they get to their destination, to the floor there. And they didn't really set fires and break a whole bunch of stuff. I know they were all, my point is it's not as bad as the media and the left want you to believe it is. And they're going to show the absolute worst pictures from that and the best pictures of other things that can be contrasted with it. But it's not the same. It's not the same. But I know it's midterm season, election season, and people are trying to pick paths. So, let's take a look at a few things we got right here from NBC News. McConnell calls January 6th a violent insurrection. There wasn't much violence, if any. Okay, there's some pushing I saw, but it wasn't violence like we have seen over the Summer of Love for sure. Let's go on down again. Not going to read that tagline. Washington Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell disagreed Tuesday with the Republican National Committee's recent censure of two GOP lawmakers, as well as the characterization of the January 6th attack on Capitol Hill. We all were here. We saw what happened. It was a violent insurrection for the purpose of trying to prevent the peaceful transfer of power after a legitimately certified election from one administration to the next. That's what it was, McConnell told reporters at his weekly news conference. His remarks added to a backlash from Democrats and numerous Republicans after the RNC approved a resolution Friday accusing Representative Liz Cheney and Adam Kinzinger of participating in a Democrat-led persecution of ordinary citizens engaged in legitimate political discourse. A reference to January 6th committee, yada, yada, yada. I will say this, like I said, it wasn't all peaceful, not 100%. So I'm not going to sit here and tell you, even though, maybe I lean to the right, I'm not going to sit here and defend them and say that, yeah, it was completely peaceful and whatnot. No, if they stole something, hold them accountable. If they push through a barrier, go get them. If they broke windows, if they demolished anything, if they, injured somebody, hold them 100% accountable. I'll say that for the right, the left, the black, the white, the up, the down, whatever. If somebody does something wrong, hold them accountable. If they don't. Most of these people that are being held right now, though, are for like trespassing. They're, as some people in the GOP and others have called it, political prisoners. And now you're starting to see someone push against that. I do agree with that, though, that there are more political prisoners from January 6th than there are from any of the other riots and protests or whatever that we've been having. And a lot of it is political. I disagree with that. If they were trespassing and that's all you've got them for, charge them with whatever, move on, or let them go. There's plenty of more people that you could get for other things, I'm sure. But yeah, some of the charges have just been ridiculous. I can't get on board with McConnell and the others 100%. And I also can't stay with a lot of those GOP guys is like, no, it was 100% peaceful. No, it wasn't. No, it wasn't. So again, like I said, I know I lean to the right on some things, but I try to see things. I try to see the world as it is. And this is not a black and white. There was a lot of gray area there. So, I think for the most part, they're overdoing it, and it's not what they want it to be, but they're trying to push it for what it is. But at the same time, you have to openly admit that you can see with your own eyes that things went down that shouldn't have gone down. No doubt. No doubt. Let's look at this next one. From the Hill, Capitol Police leadership betrayed officers on January 6th. Union official says. Top police union official says U.S. Capitol Police leadership betrayed the force on January 6, 2021, when officers defended the building from a mob of Trump supporters seeking to overturn the 2020 election. Jim Pasco, the executive director of the Fraternal Order of Police, a union that includes U.S. Capitol Police officers, told Yahoo News' Skullduggery podcast that officers dispatched to defend the Capitol that day were not prepared when it came to equipment or information needed to manage the overwhelming and totally hostile force they were met with. Again, I don't think it was overly hostile. I think that's overplayed, but I did see some in some places. So at the same time, I don't know who was under prepared and over prepared or whatever, but that's a different perspective. I think you have your right, your left, your whatever, and hearing from the police themselves, that's great. I fully am on board with hearing from every side, the right, the left, the up, the down, the front, the back, like I've said before, and that's why I'm a big proponent for shows like Joe Rogan's to exist, for us to exist, and less into the big corporate backed mainstream media who has their agendas and their biases, just like we have our biases, but they're not, I don't think, as transparent as we are. Like I said, anything that I use as a link, video, whatever, links are going to be in the description below in the show notes here. But yeah, I like to read from multiple sources. We've got one later that I'm going to read from that is absolutely incorrect and biased, and it's coming from a mainstream media network. And I'll show you that one. So kind of good to hear from this side too. It's good to get it from all sides. So good on you guys for doing this article. Again, link in the description below. You can go read it some more there. I think we're going to keep going here. Okay, before we get here, let's check this out real quick.
I just don't even know why there aren't uprisings all over the country. Maybe there will be.
There needs to be unrest in the streets for as long as there's unrest in our lives.
You got to be ready to throw a punch. You have to be ready to throw a punch.
Donald Trump, I think you need to go back and punch him in the face.
That I thought he should have punched him in the face.
Feel like punching him.
I'd like to take him behind the gym if I were in high school. If we were in high school, I'd take him behind the gym and beat the hell out of him.
No, I will go and take Trump out tonight.
Take him out now.
When was the last time an actor assassinated a president?
They're still going to have to go out and put a bullet in Donald Trump.
Show me where it says that protests are supposed to be polite and peaceful.
I have thought an awful lot about blowing up the White House.
She meant blowing.
Please, get up in the face of some Congress people.
People will do what they do.
I want to tell you, Gorsuch, I want to tell you, Kavanaugh, you have released the whirlwind, and you will pay the price.
We're going to go in there, we're going to...
Well, this is just a warning to you Trumpers. Be careful. Walk lightly. And for those of you who are soldiers, make them pay.
If you had to be stuck in an elevator...
All right, so I'll stop it there. I don't want to watch their whole video or play their whole video for you guys. It's 11 and a half minutes long. Now, this comes from Newsmax's YouTube channel here. And I wanted to pull it up from the video from YouTube directly so I can show you the comments on that too. It's just great. But I've got the link to this video in the description below. Check it out. I wanted to jump to this real quick because they keep trying to go after Trump supporters, and all this inciting, and just continue to demonize him and his supporters, for inciting violence and everything. And this just goes on and on and on about how the left has done the same thing. It's hard to claim to be the party of the uniters, bringing folks together, while you're simultaneously, condemning folks and threatening folks and whatnot. But I think I still got pulled up. Yeah. Trump is the best president America's ever had. Trump is not going anywhere. All this drama actually makes him stronger. Yeah, it does. This clearly shows the depth of evil intent they carry in their hearts. Why aren't the Democrats held accountable for what they say? Imagine how they are telling their followers to fight, and not held accountable. There you go. These people have completely lost their minds. Everything they preach leads to bloodshed in one way or another. Great comments here. Check it out. But yeah, I'll say this too, man. You remember when everyone was wearing like the MAGA hats, and people would come and knock them off their head or try to do some kind of assault to them or something like that. Let me be transparent. Not that it's not out there, but I have not seen any evidence of that happening on the other side. I don't see, any Trump supporters doing, knocking hats off or vandalizing Biden stuff or Clinton stuff, as it was in 2016, I guess. But plenty of people that were wearing MAGA hats or had Trump signs or flags, whatever, get their flags stolen, their signs stolen, their hats knocked off their heads. It's just really, really sad to see that on either side. But it really does seem to be one side pushing violence and threats over another side. But go check out that video. There's plenty more there. But we'll continue with this story here. From CNN Politics, North Carolina Elections Board says it has power to disqualify Representative Cawthorn from running over January 6th. So here we go again, still with January 6th. It says North Carolina State Board of Elections said on Monday that has the power to block GOP Rep. Madison Cawthorn from running for re-election over his role in the January 6th insurrection. What was his role? It doesn't ever say in here, so I had to pull it up. He spoke at a rally before the Capitol riot, but he calls the violence sickening. North Carolina's congressional delegation on Monday predictably took different sides on the new article of impeachment submitted by Democrats to Congress on Monday that accuses President Donald Trump of incitement of insurrection. The article is drawing support from more than 200 Democrats, lawmakers, yada, yada, yada. This is an older article because I'm trying to figure out what he said. Here we go. Is that him? What was his name? Cawthorn, right? Cawthorn. Madison Cawthorn. Yeah, don't know who that is. Blah, 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 blah. Blah, 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 blah. Madison Cawthorn, the freshman GOP congressman from outside Asheville, was among those who spoke at the January 6th rally that preceded the riot at the Capitol. American patriotism will never be silenced. Honored to speak out in defense of the Constitution, he tweeted from the stage that day. In an interview Monday, Cawthorn expressed outrage and regret about what transpired, but said he won't support impeachment. I think we all have a lesson to learn, Cawthorn said. As the Bible says, a rudder can move a ship. Your tongue can affect great change. I was telling that crowd, I'm going to fight for you. Your voice is being heard. I'm going to affect change on your behalf. Well, that's your job. That's their job. That's what they do. And they're going to, fight like hell. And that doesn't mean violently. That just means they're going to go out there and do what it takes. And, God bless them. That's what we need them to do. And he was right. It wasn't an impeachable offense. He didn't incite the violence, I don't think, from the evidence that I have seen. And again, you can't go by the fight like hell, because he also said that you were going to go to the Capitol and peacefully and patriotically protest, voice our concerns, whatever. But he did say peacefully and patriotically, and then it turned into something else. So I guess Cawthorn, because he spoke at the rally, is possibly not going to be able to run. That's, if they can stop him for that, they can play political games for anybody. right, left, whatever. And that's very, very alarming there. So what do you think? You think that should be the case, or should he be able to run? Not that he can, no offense. I see that he's in a wheelchair. That may be a bad choice of words. Anyways, I just think it's crazy what they're doing right now. Let's move on. In Axios, GOP lawmaker accuses Capitol Police of breaking into his office. So there's some crazy things going on right now in the Biden administration, up in the White House, and we continually have to talk about it because it continually happens. This is just the latest. He said that on Tuesday, he accused the U.S. Capitol Police of illegally entering his office and allegedly taking pictures of confidential legislative products in November. The weekend before Thanksgiving, Capitol Police entered my office without my knowledge and photographed confidential legislative products protected by the First Amendment. He said that days later, 3 intelligence officers attempted to enter his office and ran to one of his staffers, after which they allegedly dressed like construction workers began to question him as to the contents of a photograph taken illegally 2 days earlier. And I saw that he had done an interview with somebody. It might have been Fox, more than likely, but he had done an interview with somebody, and it was because of the groups that he was put on, the panel he was put on. They came in, they took some pictures. They said the door was open. So they came in and took some pictures. And then the intelligence officers came back later and started questioning his staff for what this meant, what that meant, started dressing in disguise and as a construction workers, like he said, and questioning him and whatnot. And that's scary. That's unconstitutional. So I'd be interesting to see what happens there, even though there doesn't seem to be any kind of accountability in the White House. And we'll talk about accountability in the White House in a minute, a little bit more. This is interesting to me. So Yahoo Finance said Biden's grade on the economy rises to an A-. President Biden has an enviable problem. The economy under his watch is doing a lot better than voters give him credit for. Really. In the latest update from Yahoo Finance, blah, 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 Biden's grade on the economy rose from a B+. It was a B+ to A-. This isn't our opinion. It's what the numbers tell us. We developed this methodology at the beginning of the Trump administration with the help of Moody's Analytics, and we've kept it in place for Biden. We determine each president's grade by tracking 6 economic indicators back to the 1970s and rating how the current president compares to prior 7 at the time point in their first terms, going back to Jimmy Carter. Of the 8 presidents, Biden gets the highest marks for the total number of new jobs created since he took office. See, that's another one. This is where you have to start. Again, I like to use sources from the left and the right that I know have biases and lean certain ways, but you have to get it from all different angles so you can start finding out what's fact and what is opinion. This, I think it says, it doesn't say one way or another, but for Yahoo Finance, I'm going to say this is an actual write-up. This isn't an opinion piece, but it's full of it. We talked about this last week or the week before. The amount of jobs created, there's no telling how many that has been created. They're coming back from the largest drop of jobs, loss of jobs, highest unemployment in such a long history that, yeah, when those jobs start coming back, that's a great thing. It's a good thing, as Bernie Sanders would say. It's a good thing. But that doesn't mean that these are jobs created. People are just going back to work. Unemployment's going down because people are going back to work. People are going back to work. So, the jobs, people that are employed, that's going up. But from what? From its lowest point to this, it's still not where it was in 2019. You can't tell me he's got an A- and he still doesn't have with an A-, he's not back to where we were in 2019. 2019 under Trump, we have like one of the best, was it 70 years or something like that? And I may be wrong. You can fact check me all you want. I'm just spitballing here, but it was like 70 years or something. It was like the best economy that we ever had was under Trump in like 2019. He had 3 years to build it up from where he got in to where he was in 2019. And we were killing it. and killing it going into the pandemic, and that ruined everything. And so now to start kind of, shutdowns are no longer happening and people are going back to work and some of the incentives are going away. So people are going back to work because of that too. You can't count that as jobs being created. That doesn't make any sense. So whatever they're using, this Bidenomics report card, God, what help us, Lord, have mercy. Whatever it is they created through Moody's, it's just wrong. Either that or they're just lying. And then it says the economy under his watch is doing a lot better than voters give him credit for. Why do you think? Because voters are still paying double at the gas pump than they were, a year or two ago. Excuse me. Our inflation is going through the roof. The value of our dollar bill won't go, a third as far in some cases for some things. The supply chain is still in disarray. I mean, things aren't good. Things are not good. I got a 9-year-old. She's in 3rd grade, already learning about economics. I was talking about that earlier to somebody. It blows my mind that they're learning about economics in the 3rd grade. She knows more about supply and demand than most of the people that are running this country do. And it's sad. AOC, Jen Psaki, whoever, all of them need to sit down with my 9-year-old and talk about supply and demand because they don't have the first clue. They don't have a clue. And it's infuriating to see it. But no, he doesn't get an A-. This dude does not get an A. Don't start figuring out by doing your own research who's being truthful and who's not. That's not truthful. It's not. And if you're not sure and you want to look at it, go back to last week or the week before's show when I was featuring Jen Psaki. It's 2 weeks ago. Jen Psaki used a graph and showed the jobs. It's not legit. It's not legit at all. Some good news, I think. Biden notes Tesla and the country's largest electric vehicle manufacturer among Elon Musk after Elon Musk called him a damp sock puppet in human form. He acknowledged Tesla. We did it. Win! Okay, so that probably wasn't us with my, 10 or 12 viewers or whatever. But the fact that he's acknowledging Elon Musk is huge. Let's check this article out. President Biden on Tuesday acknowledged, all this is on Tuesday. President Biden on Tuesday acknowledged Tesla as the country's largest electric vehicle manufacturer, correct? For months, Biden has faced calls to include Tesla in the national EV conversation. CEO Elon Musk has been critical of the president for boosting Ford and GM while leaving out Tesla. Done read that. All right. During a speech focused on boosting domestic electric vehicle manufacturing, Biden spoke of Tesla's influence in the industry, a departure from his usual praise for legacy automakers like Ford and General Motors. The president mentioned that over $200 billion in manufacturing investments have been greenlit by companies since last year, while also announcing that Australian company Tritium would construct a new plant in Tennessee and produce up to 30,000 electric vehicle chargers annually. Since 2021, companies have announced investments totaling more than $200 billion in domestic manufacturing here in America, he said. From iconic companies like GM and Ford, building out new electric vehicle production facilities, to Tesla, our nation's largest electric vehicle manufacturer, to innovate younger companies like Rivian, building electric trucks, or Proterra, building electric buses. Couldn't remember if I saw something. Elon Musk told Tesla fans their petition made a difference after President Biden acknowledged the company, calling it our nation's electric vehicle, our largest electric vehicle manufacturer. So I spoke about this last week, and it's great to see it because, one of the things that we talked about was why, Tesla's being left out of the conversation. And I think it was completely obvious that the government is in the pocketbooks of Ford and GM, and the unions are in the politicians' pocketbooks, pulling the purse string, so to speak. And so, the unions are are writing legislation and funding the politicians and doing whatnot. And they're all in Ford and GM. It's that UAW, I want to say, United Auto Workers. And they're not there at Tesla. So there is no grip and control over Tesla like there is on the others. And I want to say that's probably why he's been getting left out, shafted, so to speak. So a bit of good news. I'm always down for that. Let's check this out. Psaki repeatedly grilled on why Biden cabinet member not fired after disrespectful behavior. So remember I was talking earlier about accountability in the White House? This will be a good one. If you don't remember, let's check this out.
But I'm not joking when I say this. If you're ever working with me and I hear you treat another colleague with disrespect, talk down to someone, I promise you I will fire you on the spot. On the spot. No ifs, ands, or buts. Everybody is entitled to be treated with decency and dignity. That's been missing in a big way the last 4 years.
And see, that's one of the things that Biden ran off of when he was going against Trump was the decency and respect and stuff like that they said wasn't in the White House for the last 4 years. Well, here's an article, we'll get to it in a second, but here's an article that discusses, a cabinet member admitting to not treating people with respect. And on top of that, you've got people just walking out of the cabinet for Kamala and some criticizing her on her ethics and whatnot. But here we see Psaki repeatedly grilled on why Biden cabinet member not fired after disrespectful behavior. White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki refused to say Monday if President Biden would follow through on his promise to fire anyone who treats colleagues disrespectfully after a member of his cabinet apologized for such behavior. Dr. Eric Lander, a member of Biden's cabinet who serves as director of White House Office of Science and Technology Policies, apologized to his staff for speaking to them in a disrespectful and demeaning way, according to an email obtained Monday by Fox News. The email followed an internal White House investigation that found credible evidence that Leonard had spoken harshly and disrespectfully to colleagues in front of their colleagues, as first reported by Politico. Representative Anna G. Eshoo of California, who serves as chairwoman of the Subcommittee on Health, tweeted Monday evening that the White House had informed her that Lander would not be testifying as planned before the subcommittee on Tuesday. Psaki was asked by Politico reporter Alex Thompson during Monday's press briefing why the president's top science advisor still had his job in light of that Biden promised on his first day in office. His promise was, if you are ever working with me and I hear you treat another colleague with disrespect, talk down to someone, I promise I will fire you on the spot. No ifs, ands, or buts. He broke that. He's not going to do it. Jen Psaki keeps saying over and over again that maybe we'll play. Does this play? Let's see.
China. Go ahead.
Just to reiterate, on Inauguration Day, President Biden said he would fire anyone that treated other colleagues with disrespect, talk down to someone, and he would fire them on the spot. No ifs, ands, or buts. So what is the White House's message to people that work in this building and throughout the federal government that took the president at his word and don't understand why Dr. Lander has not been fired?
Our message, and thank you for your question, is that the president has crystal clear expectations with all of us about how we are to treat our colleagues, treat people who work for us, and that is what he expects for people across the building. It is because of those comments that he made early on, in part, that we put in place a safe and respectful workplace policy, that it was the mechanism for which this thorough investigation went forward.
All right, so she says he's made it clear. Well, the thing that he said was you'd be fired on the spot. That was clear. That was the clearest thing I've ever heard Biden say, probably ever, right? So he made it clear. And she says, so now we know we need to address this issue. And he made it clear that we're going to have a safe work environment. No, he made it clear that you would be fired on the spot. That was what was made clear. And Jen Psaki, she's being asked about, and of course, as always, she's dodging the answer. And in fact, I've listened to the whole thing, and maybe it's even longer than this, but the whole time she keeps dodging it, and answering it in different ways. And they're really good at that. And I guess that's why she's got her job. But yeah, not cool, man. And, I heard one time it was said to me, if a man doesn't have his word, he doesn't have anything. Or as Tony Montana says,
all I have in this world is my balls and my word, and I don't break them for no one.
let's go, Brandon. Your turn. Let's talk about COVID and the convoys a little bit here. All right, in AP News, GOP lawmaker apologizes for cursing at Democrat over masks. So I pulled this up because I was excited that I had some dirt on the right that I was going to pull out and talk about. And it wasn't just going to be me bashing the left. I got to reading this article and I'm not so sure I can do that. I feel like there's a little tongue in cheek both ways. And, I don't know if he was necessarily in the wrong or the right in this. You read it and you decide. Let's take a look at it. GOP lawmaker apologizes for cursing at Democrat over masks. Now, that headline is completely different than what's in here pretty much. But it says a senior Republican lawmaker apologized late Tuesday for using an expletive when Democrat Representative Joyce Beatty asked him to put his mask on while in the Capitol. Again, let's see what the actual confrontation was. The confrontation was just the latest dust up in the House over mask wearing, which many Republicans have refused to do. Earlier Tuesday, Beatty from Ohio ran to Representative Hal Rogers, Kentucky, outside her congressional office. Rogers, who has served in Congress since 1981. Let me just stop there. Dude's been in there way too long. I was born in 84. I know that makes me old for some of y'all. Or young. I'll take it. I am what I am. He's been in there longer than I've been alive. Dude's got to go. I'm a huge believer in terms, for Congress, just like the president, man. We got to get these folks out of here. It blows my mind that we have people that rarely or never use computers trying to understand Facebook and Twitter and these platforms that we use today. It really blows my mind because I don't think a lot of them can wrap their heads around what it is. But I'll keep reading. That's just something I had to point out. This dude needs to go. So in Kentucky, who has Rand Paul, and I absolutely love Rand Paul. Y'all probably got some other folks in there that are good too. Let's get Hal Rogers out of there. He doesn't need to be there. But anyways, she asked him to put on his mask and he begrudgingly agreed. She said, so he agreed. He didn't cuss her out, right? She said in an interview with the Associated Press shortly after it happened. Rogers proceeded to take his mask off when they got off the elevator, and the two crossed paths again upon entering a train in the Capitol complex. This is when the interaction became hostile. Beatty once again asked Rogers to put his mask on. So it kind of sounds like to me, excuse me, that she's like, put your mask on, put your mask on, put your mask on. She's probably asking for it at this point, being a turd, right? So some people are just mean. And, sounds like maybe she's being a little bit of a Karen here, as the young kids would say. But it says, you poked me in the middle of my back and said, get on the train, she said. And I said, don't you ever touch me. According to Beatty, Rogers replied, kiss my ass. This just sounds so juvenile. I'm sorry. This just sounds so petty and juvenile. But here we are talking about it. She sounds like she was being obnoxious. He sounds like he was irritated and fired back at her. I don't think either of them were right for doing what they were doing, but I don't think it's that big of a deal. And again, I pulled it out because I said, okay, well, here's an opportunity for me to, call out the right for something. But I mean, if I had somebody saying that to me all day, every day too, I'd probably tell them to kiss my ass too, to just be perfectly fair. Oh, this is where it gets pretty good. I love this. It says, I hate to think if it had been reversed and a man of color, they would have ushered him off the floor. Well, we know that's not true. We know that's not true. We just saw a little collage video and there's more to it of men of color threatening to beat up, President Trump or former President Trump, whatever at the time, Trump supporters, harassing them. And no, nothing happened to them. As long as they're a Democrat, a liberal, a progressive, or whatever, no, they get a free pass. I'm sorry, it doesn't matter black or white. They get a free pass. So I hate that they do that. I hate that's even a thought that comes out of their mind. She was in the wrong and agitating him. And she probably got what she deserved. I don't care if she's black or white or male or female. When you agitate somebody, you poke the bear, bear's going to, come back at you. So I'm not saying she got what she deserved necessarily. Hate to say it like that. But I mean, I'm sure she was being a pest. And, you can only take so much of that yourself. Let's keep going. So let's talk about the convoy a little bit, because these are interesting articles, interesting times. And we're going to see a little differences here. So COVID from AP News again, COVID-19 protests threaten border between border trade. God, I can't read. Border trade between Canada, U.S. In Ottawa, Canadian lawmaker expressed increasing worry Tuesday about the economic effects of disruptive demonstrations after the busiest border crossing between U.S. and Canada became partially blocked by truckers protesting vaccine mandates and other COVID-19 restrictions. I got to give them a hand, because some of the write-ups will continue to say that they're protesting the vaccines, and they're not. They're protesting the vaccine mandate. So good on you for saying that correctly. The blockade at the Ambassador Bridge between Detroit and Windsor, Ontario, prevented traffic from entering Canada while some U.S.-bound traffic was still moving. Public Safety Minister said, calling the bridge one of the most important border crossings in the world. It carries 25% of all trade between Canada and the United States. The Canadian Transport Minister Omar said such blockades will have serious implications on the economy and supply chains. That's right. I've already heard from automakers and food grocers. This is really a serious cause for concern, he said in Ottawa, the capital. Yes, that's the point. They're stopping this stuff from coming through, so it's an inconvenience. It's like when Black Lives Matter blocked the roads. I disagreed with that, because sometimes, we saw some clips where there are emergency vehicles trying to come through. In this instance, the roads are partially blocked, from my understanding, not completely blocked. So emergency vehicles can still come through. And I think that's, commendable on that. And I wasn't completely against the Black Lives Matter protests that were blocking streets or whatnot. But to do it entirely 100%, I think is kind of a dick move. To just slow down traffic and be an inconvenience. I think you're causing enough disruption to get your point across without coming across as an absolute dick and then people hating you for it. So you got to find that fine line. I think the truckers are doing a better job, so props to those guys. And if you hadn't already heard, GoFundMe seems to trying to be doing the right thing now and refund all of their donations, because they are no longer giving the money to the truckers. They were originally going to cancel that fundraiser and self-distribute those funds to organizations they wanted to. Well, word got out, people weren't happy about it, so now they're getting refunds back to the people who made the donations. I don't think it's any more complex than that, right now, but it started off that way. So anyways, I'm glad to hear that's happening. I know there's another site that's doing donations for them, so I hope they get those. Let's look at this other one. So this one's interesting. So here's an interesting write-up from CNN Opinion. And they do say it's opinion, so I give them that. I'm glad they labeled that. Canada's trucker protesters aren't who Americans might think. From Andrew Cohen. Might have to remember that guy. For days, the army of truckers and their disciples has been honking, marching, demanding, and posturing. The Freedom Convoy has come to this sleepy capital to protest a mandate that requires truckers entering the county to be vaccinated or comply with testing and quarantine requirements. Correct. At first blush, the protest feels American. Some wave banners emblazoned with Make Canada Great Again, F Trudeau, or Trump 2024. I've seen that. Others carried a Confederate flag. They shouted freedom while authorities fear chaos and send the Prime Minister and his family to an undisclosed location, much like the Secret Service hid Vice President Dick Cheney on September 11th, 2001. All right, so the Confederate flag, from my understanding, there was one dude there waving a Confederate flag, one group there, and the truckers kicked them out. Like, they removed them. I think somebody else was waving a swastika flag or something, and they removed them too. They're like, they're not with us. They don't represent us, and they booted them out. You know, and if a trucker's booting them out, they got booted out good. So no, they're not representative of that. But I've seen several articles say that, oh, there's people there with Confederate flags. No, there's person there, not people, person. And they're trying to lump them into being these terrible human beings. And to associate this to September 11th, the protest has been celebrated by some in the United States, perhaps in the hope that revolution is flowering in frozen Canada. Among the vocal are Tesla CEO Elon Musk and former President Donald Trump. American truckers are said to be inspired to plan their own mobilized march in Washington, D.C. That conservatives in the United States are moved by a protest. I don't get that one. The grammar, I'm sorry, grammar Nazi here. Not really a Nazi. That conservatives in the United States are moved by a protest in Canada, that they even notice Canada, likely emboldens the Canadian truckers. After all, to fabulists such as broadcaster Tucker Carlson, Canada has become a dark surveillance state led by no more fearful despot in the world than Justin Trudeau. Oh, Canada, truckers are your salvation. This goes on a little bit more. But yeah, so I do have to give him props on this. He got a good bit of it right, but he did try to make it seem like the truckers were doing the worst thing that's happening with the truckers up there is they're honking their horns. That's it. I mean, the government got involved and got their GoFundMe taken down. The government started passing some almost like restrictions or whatever you want to call them, curfews or whatever, where you couldn't stand by the road. They started taking their gas away. They started reaching out to the tow truck companies. The tow truck companies won't do anything. They're on the side of the truckers. It's a hot mess up there. And we got one more article with this one. AP News again. New Zealand convoy. Protesters clog streets near Parliament. Wellington, New Zealand. Hundreds of people protesting vaccine and mask mandates drove in convoy to New Zealand's capital on Tuesday and converged outside Parliament as lawmakers reconvene after a summer break. That's awesome. That's all. So this is what's supposed to be happening. You know, the people are supposed to be speaking up. And I know these aren't sit in America. This is, you know, New Zealand. This is Canada. You know, it's probably coming here to America, but this is what should be happening. The people run the countries, not these dictators. And so they have to be reminded of that sometimes. I wasn't going to read this whole thing. I was just going to point out that New Zealand, of all places, they're protesting too. And I think that's incredible. What do you think about the protests? Do you think that this is a peaceful protest? Do you think it's causing any issues that's making them look like the bad actors here? Or do you think they're all well and good? I think they're all well and good. I'm very excited that people are standing up for the rights and doing what they have to do. So hats off to you, truckers. I'm with you. Last up, let's talk about some crack pipes. We've got a few articles here that just came out about some crack pipes coming from the HHS. So let's look at this one from the Hill. It says White House disputes reports of federal funds for crack pipes. The Biden administration on Wednesday pushed back on what it called misinformation, saying a federal grant program meant to reduce harm to drug users does not include taxpayer funding for pipes that can be used as to smoke crack or meth. Let me point out something there. It says, and this is got to pick up on it, it does not include taxpayer funding for pipes that can be used to smoke crack or meth. So there's a grant program out there, right, that is allowing HHS to put out these, does it say what they're called again? It was like safe smoking kits or something like that. There it is. It's safe smoking kits. Yeah. So these safe smoking kits are going to have syringes and alcohol wipes and stuff like that, you know, so crackheads aren't giving each other STDs or anything like that, or furthering infections. And word on the street is there's going to be crack pipes in there too, so they can smoke the crack, which is awesome for them, I guess. But the verbiage here doesn't say that the White House says there's not going to be any crack pipes in there. It says there's not going to be any taxpayer funding for crack pipes. So pick up on that. And then I'm interested to know where this grant came from. I don't think it really covers that. I'm wondering if the grant is funded by taxpayers, and if it is, then this is wrong. But yeah, it says White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki later told reporters at a briefing that reports that crack pipes would be included in the safe smoking kits being distributed as part of the program were inaccurate. Even though this has never been a part of what's been funded, we felt it was important to put out a public statement from the federal government to make that clear, because we saw the spreading of misinformation and the fact that it was having an impact on a range of communities, Psaki said, and we felt, even though it was never true, that we need to put out a proactive statement. And where she go at down here? Reports circulated on Fox News and other conservative outlets that the grant program was being used to fund crack pipes. However, and the narrative quickly spread among conservative lawmakers. So they pointed at the conservatives. Over here at the Daily Mail, which I think is more so conservative, you know, granted, says Biden administration denies funding programs that hand out crack pipes to prevent infection, promote racial equity. So pretty much the same thing we read here before. But what's interesting is this third bullet point down here. It says the $30 million grant program will distribute funds to nonprofits and local governments to make drug use safer and advance racial equity, whatever that means. Included in the grant is money to purchase safe smoking kits / supplies. Here's the third bullet point. A spokesperson for HHS said included in these kits could be pipes for users to smoke substances like crack cocaine and crystal meth. So either the Daily Mail is lying, or the White House is lying, or the spokesperson from HHS is lying. So it doesn't seem like anyone's on the same page here. I like the fact that somehow passing out crack pipes or syringes or whatever is going to help with racial equity among our good old crack smoking folks, crackheads, crack users, whatever we want to call them. And look, I'm not insensitive. I understand that being addicted to something is awful. You know, we've got methadone clinics for meth heads, you know, doing something. I get it. We've got to be proactive. People are addicted to alcohol. People are addicted to food, you know, because I like seasoning. People are addicted to things, and I get that. And I don't want to be insensitive to that, but I don't think you help by incentivizing them smoke it instead of whatever else they're doing. I don't know, injecting it. Like, hey, I've got a cooler way for you to gut yourself. Smoke it. I don't know. That may be what's up. Let's look at the HHS site directly, though. I did read this from the hhs.gov. Statement by HHS Secretary Xavier Becerra and yada, yada, yada. Today, on the heels of organizations applying for grant money for harm reduction efforts, Health and Human Services Secretary, yada, 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 blah, 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 released the following statement. HHS and ONDCP are focused on using our resources smartly to reduce harm and save lives. According to federal funding, accordingly, no federal funding will be used directly or through subsequent reimbursements of grantees to put pipes in safe smoking kits. No federal funding will be used directly or through subsequent reimbursement of grantees. All right. So it's going a little further, kind of reassuring that we're not going to use taxpayer dollars, but still doesn't say that pipes aren't going to go in there. The goal of harm reduction is to save lives. The administration is focused on a comprehensive strategy to stop the spread of drugs and curb addiction, including prioritizing the use of proven harm reduction strategy like providing naloxone, fentanyl test strips, and clean syringes, as well as taking decisive actions to go after violent criminals who are trafficking illicit drugs like fentanyl across our borders and into our communities. We will continue working to address the addiction and overdose epidemic and ensure that our resources are used in the smartest and most efficient manner. Why aren't we doing more to stop fentanyl from crossing the border, though? That's something we could totally do, and we were working on that. I don't understand. I mean, you say you want to fix things, but the way you go about it is just, it's ass backwards. So hey, we're gonna eliminate drug use, and we're gonna make things safer. Safer for what? For the druggies to use their drugs? I mean, hats off to them, but what about for everybody else? And then we're not gonna stop the fentanyl and other drugs from coming in through the border, and we're gonna give them free passes. We're not gonna make them get COVID tested or shots or whatever. I mean, it seems like that's the way to go. If I wanted to start a business and maybe a drug mule, hey, Mexico-U.S. border is the way to go. I don't understand the methodology here in its entirety, but I don't know. I quit trying to figure these guys out. But I will say that the likely head for this new operation I was unable to reach him for comment, and from my understanding, he's unattainable at the moment. Heaven help us. See y'all next week.
I had to do a rough show last week. Had to do a country western bar on the wrong night too. Hang a nigga night. But thank God I don't have no neck. They was pretty pissed at me. Get his fat ass out of here. He ain't got no fucking neck. All he can do is choke his chin.